Hello, welcome to this week's episode of What One Thing, one business, one story and one lesson to take away in action every week for small business owners looking to grow. I'm Hayley Baxter.
And I'm Phil Davenport, and today we have the pleasure of talking to Meg Fenney. Now, she is the founder and director of HR Download, a people-first consultancy powered by a passionate team of HR professionals. Together, they help businesses build confident, healthy workplaces through fractional HR support, executive coaching and tailored training, with optimism, fairness and creativity at the heart of everything they do. Meg and her team bring clarity and energy to every challenge, making HR simple, human and impactful. Under Meg's leadership, HR Download has become a trusted partner for growing organisations across the UK. The team works closely with clients to shape strategic people decisions, navigate employment law and foster cultures where people thrive. Whether supporting leaders or empowering teams, Meg ensures HR Downloads delivers with integrity, responsibility and a genuine commitment to helping people grow business through their people. Meg's been in business for 5 years. She employs 4 staff. They are a business-to-business retailer, if you will, and there are 2 directors in her team. She was the founder. And Meg, just take us back to before the business started. What did an average day look like, and what lit the flame to start your own business?
Okay, so hello everyone. The average day when I was back in corporate land was very long, so I'd probably start around 6:30 in the morning. I might finish around 10ish at night, if that. And that was genuinely average. It's grueling out there in corporate land in HR. The type of stuff that we were doing were quite often very reactive, resolving people-related issues, complicated grievances, complex cases. That sort of kind of really reactive, gritty operational HR. And then I would run a team of HR business partners, which would be looking at talent, leadership development, growth as well, and that, and looking at the business strategy, how is our people aligned to enable that business strategy, where's our skills, where's our gaps. So we'd be doing all of that kind of work within not that one day, but those days would be quite typical. But for me, my team and I suppose the why, what was lighting me, I was under big corporates, big lead global organisations who were setting in reality the HR strategic agenda, very often miles adrift from what was required to enable and drive the business units, if you like. If you class like a UK business would be a business unit, that UK business unit would need a different people strategy because it had a different problem that it was trying to resolve at its core, and we didn't have all of the tools, IT, technology, all that sort of stuff at our fingertips because that was set globally. So that was quite often quite frustrating, and the learning agenda was set globally, and us locally, if you like, championing it up to the kind of global team to say, for all of these reasons, this isn't going to work, was quite frustrating. Not only that, naturally through business, you were being challenged all of the time. I was in the middle squeeze, if you like, as the kind of leader across. And they're taking out budget from me, and I'm looking going, well, I'm trying to deliver this with less resources. You won't let me invest in the technology to enable that to happen. So it's quite frustrating. I knew that service was going to go down rather than up. That's not necessarily a common theme, but it was what I was dealing with when I was in corporate.
So you decided to take the plunge and set up on your own. Talk to us about how that all came about.
Well, that was a bit of a rash decision in some ways, in that I just thought on a plane, because I was looking after the geography, if you like, back from wherever I was. It's not really relevant. And I just thought, you know what? It's too long a days. I had a 6-month-old baby. The type of work was not really congruent for family life. The business were really good. They were like, you can do 4 days if you like. And I was thinking, yeah, well, it's still 4, 12, 13-hour days. So it's still 4 days out of 7 I'm not going to see my child. So I'm not really keen on that. So there was definitely a true push. I was like, this just isn't for me. And then the pull was, and I can fix all of these problems because I can get the right system. I can do lots of things that my business operators and leaders needed. I can generate all of those sorts of things. I can put it in place for my small businesses that I will work with. And I thought, that's brilliant. What a wonderful thing to do. Off I trot. So I was quite naive. I just thought everybody would want to work with me.
And why
No,
wouldn't they, Meg? And why
Yeah.
would they not?
What's the problem here?
So how did you actually get your first client then?
So I joined a networking group. People love it or loathe it. It was brilliant for me, called Business Network International, BNI. I joined that, and it was a local network full of local, small, very small business owners, where the idea behind it is you get to know my capability, I get to know your capability. If your clients need my type of support, then you'll refer me in. If my clients need your type of support, then vice versa. I mean, to start with, I must have been such a terrible team member because I had no clients. So, oops. But that through that network is how I gained my first clients.
But I never knew what BNI standard for until today, Meg. I was this,
Oh, there you go.
they're years old that I learned that. Was that your first logical step in marketing, or did you try other tactics, or what drew you into BNI?
Well, so I decided I was leaving. I can't remember, maybe the March, maybe the April. And a neighbour of mine, actually, as I was chatting to them, as you do over a gin and tonic over the fence, they ran their own business. They're an IFA, local IFA. And so there was a local BNI group about a 2-minute walk from where I live, and he was in it. So I just thought, yeah, do you know what? My network is all corporate. Unless those people in corporate have started their own business, my LinkedIn network is genuinely useless to me. Not totally, because otherwise Hayley wouldn't. But truly, most of my business, they're all employees, great people, but not useful to growing a business. So I needed to grow a network that was relevant to the people I wanted to support and service, which is completely different. Yeah, it wasn't my intro to marketing. I didn't try anything else. I just thought probably need to learn how to do this stuff, and let's go meet a bunch of people, and you seem really nice and I like you, and so that's fine. So that's not so scary, and I can go along and they can ask me lots of tricky questions that I've not thought about, and I'll have to think about these 60-second pitches. Goodness, those are tricky, aren't they? So all that sort of stuff was suddenly, my first meetings was a world of pain. I was like, oh, okay. I need to think this through.
I think we set up businesses at a very similar time. So was that just at the start of COVID or around COVID times?
Yeah, so March 2019 was when I kind of mentally made the decision. I exited that kind of employee role, I think, in the July. In the August, on holiday with my sister, we'd got excited and decided on the name. And so it looks like we register round the pool in Sicily, I think. And then I start in earnest working on the business kind of like September. But again, my baby's very young, so I'm thinking this is fine. I look after baby whilst baby's sleeping. I'll do my handbook and the materials and all that sort of good stuff that you need for a HR business. I'll build up that portfolio whilst he's asleep. And I'll do this networking with BNI. So I didn't get my first client until January 2020. And then, of course, COVID happens and lockdown in the March. So it's, yeah.
So what's something you believed about business early on that turned out to be totally wrong? Bearing in mind that really you'd worked in business and, corporate businesses, and you were quite, you were very senior in the corporate world. But what was something that, you believed about business early on that was totally wrong?
I think for me, honestly, some of the hilarious learnings, you'd have a nightmare with me, Hayley. I didn't know how to invoice to start with. That was bonkers. I was like, I've done this piece of work. Now, what do we do now? Google, help me understand, what does this invoice thing look like? How do I collect money? Oh, I need a bank account. So there was all sorts of quite practical things that I hadn't quite worked out. The thing that I thought of, and I think because I've been going to BNI is why I thought this, I really thought that I was only going to get clients and sales if I was this wonderfully polished, brilliant speaker from a sales perspective. Now, I love doing training, leadership, speeches, coaching, all that sort of stuff. But sales feels about selling my services personally. That for me was so out of my comfort zone. It was absolutely, the learning journey there has been phenomenal. But I really thought I can't do this and nobody's ever going to buy me because I can't help them understand what I can do for them because I'm a gibbering wreck speaking for like 10 minutes when I'm supposed to only have 60, and I've got this stupid bell that somebody keeps ringing in my face and I've got to sit down. Sorry. Seriously, I'm not dissing BNI. BNI is absolutely brilliant, but for me it was quite challenging.
I think somebody said, I can't remember whether I read it on one of those cheesy memes or wherever it was, but it was perfectionism is the quality control of procrastination.
So
And I think one of
interestingly,
the
yeah.
things that hit me up early was instead of going out and selling and putting myself out, I was too busy making sure that our patch management was perfectly up to date and making sure we had this and they all capital T's, but we're not really ready to kind of roll forward. How did you find taking, because you must have come from a corporate background where you had this big polished product and you had all your systems, how did you find that transition to being, I call it kind of sailing your own little dinghy, if you will do, from
Yeah,
coming off that corporate cruise ship? How was that for you?
it was kind of a juxtaposition. In one sense, it was absolutely wonderfully liberating. I had so much content in my head that I just needed to get out. So we have micro videos galore on loads and loads and loads of really useful different topics. And they were just flooding out of me. I just couldn't stop. I mean, it was like this crazy phase. I mean, I look back now and it's great. I'm like, oh, I'm 5 years younger. I look great. Um, so the content's really good. It was useful. It's from Gartner, and I had all of that at my fingertips anyway because I was always working with them, but I just couldn't implement everything I wanted to do. And actually, there's some free tools out there, and that was one of the things that I think I did quite well fast, is that I had a look at what tool do I want to use so that I can get this material out to my clients, and I settled on HubSpot. You could settle on any, but I settled on HubSpot so that I could house these kind of videos and send them to my singular client at the time. But I could send them out on a monthly basis about leadership or about the law and where might they challenge. So that side of it was really liberating. And then of course I was used to having quite a substantial team. So I was working on the people strategy, etc. And then somebody else was delivering that for me by the time I left. And so I just remember laughing, genuinely just sat there laughing as I put the phone down and went, oh, and in my head I was thinking, I'll just ask such and such to crack on with that. That'd be great. But I was like, oh, no, no, I'll be doing that. Yes, okay, I'll be doing that. Right. So, all the admin, suddenly I'm doing it. The business partner advice and guidance. Megs will do that. Strategy. Oh, that's for you too, Meg. And oh, there's a piece of casework that's pretty intricate and there's a big investigation that needs to be done. Oh, that's for you as well. Right. Okay, great. So on that side, I was like, how do I go from kind of helicopter vision to micro detail again? So you're stepping back so many years, truly so many years for me. And that was good to get back to delivering it in so many ways, but I was rusty. People are asking me what I'd class as a really basic question. I've not answered a maternity question for like 15 years. I don't know. What does the law say? Okay, I'll come back to you. And I'm busy rereading all of these maternity policies and things, thinking, okay, right. So that was the side of it that was. But I didn't have many clients, so I had the luxury of time. In many ways, that was totally fine. If I'd had 100 clients, I'd have been an absolute disaster. But I didn't. It's fine. Yeah.
So I think that leads us beautifully into kind of a couple of questions. I'm going to hit you with, I suppose this is all around business management and planning. How did you adapt yourself to wearing all those different hats? Did you segment your time? Did you time block, or did you just, as we often do, give it the old Tasmanian devil and just whirlwind everything? And then how did you decide that you needed members of staff based on how many customers you'd got? Had you got a brilliant 5-year plan that you were slowly working your way through to in a completely documented system? Or how did you find that with growing the business?
So I had a lot of help really, and that again, I told you the challenge within BNI, but the help for me within BNI was phenomenal. That network, that team, that group, they were amazing. So I had a load of help in many ways from what I'd call a sales strategy, because the sales was going to dictate the number of clients. Now I know in HR we're all design specialists, so in a nice way, Phil, this is kind of my bag. I know exactly when to hire somebody, what skill level, how they look like. That's my bread and butter. That is what we deliver into clients. If I can't do that, that's a problem. So that wasn't the issue. What I didn't know really how to do is, well, how many calls do I need to make in order to make a sale, and how many, what does that look like? Because the rest of it was fine. I could do that bit. That process for me was where I needed quite a lot of help, and I got a lot of help for that. But it didn't interest me very much, really, if I'm quite frank with you. What I'm more interested in is solving people's strategy and people's related problems in business. So I found it very hard to be disciplined in an area that, one, I was a bit unskilled at. So that's never nice to be disciplined to do it. And two, I thought it was a bit boring, having the same conversation over and over again. So it's not exciting to me to do it. And three, I wasn't that excited by the win. In my game, we're kind of, for a lot of our clients, you're talking about £200 per month on average for our clients. So that's not exciting when you've been used to a different salary level. So none of that was exciting to me, which is where you see salespeople, they're motivated, and they're talking to me and B&I about get motivated by the money. No, it's not going to work. So that I found that difficult. And so your question around how did I manage it had to be by time block. And I had to force myself to sit down to do it, because otherwise I was going to happily not do it. And then the stuff when I had re-educated myself, if you like, into the employee relations stuff, we're still very low in terms of, we've got a huge capacity for number of clients versus that. So that operationally, that's not where we get challenged. We more get challenged in the business partnering and strategic space, where we've got not that many clients, but that takes a lot of our time doing the stuff that I said to you before that I'm quite good at, but it takes time to do it. So yeah, time blocking was required. And I used to have to say to myself at the end of the week, I had a little sheet. Did I do the number of calls? Did I do it? I used to analyse, have I done it? And if I didn't, was it justified, or have I happily slipped into, let's do another wonderful video for my one client? So I found that tricky.
I think, though, it's really interesting because it can be a little bit of a shock to the system when you've been used to a totally different way of life and a totally different world. And I think it's really interesting because sometimes people believe that growing a business happens, you've been lucky, or, the way that it's all happened has come easily to you. But actually, I think what you've just shared there is a great example of how you have to do things all the time that actually you don't really want to do it, you don't really like doing it. But actually, if you want to make a success of it, you've got to find a way to make yourself do those things. Otherwise, you're not going to evolve, and your business just won't grow unless you are suddenly incredibly lucky. What do you think, Phil?
I think that almost and virtually the vast majority of the people that we speak to are what I would define as engineers turned business owners. So in your case, obviously your engineering was kind of HR related, but when I say engineer, we produce something, we work tools and we produce something. And I think the journey for salespeople is probably the easiest journey, because they're used to getting those orders in, and then once you've got that order and that money rolling, the best people tend to be the people who actually really know how to run a business and have sat underneath, not a Branson, but a small business equivalent of a Richard Branson, or of an incredibly successful person, and they understand that they are building a business and the layers of the business are this, and we need to sort this out. I think it's very hard for us as engineers to not just think, well, people should flock to me because I'm great. I've spent 15 years in this industry. I perfect everything. Why are they not? I just want to walk into this networking group, give them a card, say, look, sign up. I'll give you the direct debit details next week. I think that kind of pulls us on to, and I think this is where you could be really helpful, because I think there's so many of us that do go from that engineer to business owner background. What would be the one thing, Meg, in your journey from being what it sounds like was a phenomenal kind of, globe-trotting HR guru to business owner. Once you'd started that business, what was the one thing that really allowed you to grow the business and to rock it, and was a real kind of pivotal thing that another business owner could take forward?
I suppose there's two bits to that for me, I would say. The first bit is when I was starting, it was that consistency. That's absolutely, without a doubt, that is what made me actually have a business. And I was very disciplined within it. So I was working when nobody's watching, always working. So that was happening. There was no money coming in, so that was tricky. But house was up for sale, we were moving, I was not giving up. That's what was going to happen. Because unfortunately for us, my husband had quite a bad accident and lost his job at the same time as I set up. So, not quite the same time, but pretty much. So he lost his job in the April 2020. So by the November 2020, we were like, okay, that's a tricky thing. So I think that grit, that determination is but the discipline to stay on course and the knowledge that you're going to do it. For me, whatever you put your mind to and you back up with activity, you'll learn, you grow. If you reflect, you'll do it. So that was the first thing that I would say. So I'm not a natural salesperson. I'm not that. That's not where I would naturally sit. Sales and marketing type thing. That's not. I'm growing in that space, but it's not my bag. I've been quite disciplined in learning it, in following through on it, and doing the activities and reflecting on that. So that would be my first thing. And then as our consultancy now is starting to elevate and move in the direction that I would like it to, that's because I've gone back to my roots in terms of thinking, well, okay, just hang on a minute here. The market, and it was a small circle, it was just the BNI influencers, if you like, were basically driving me down what I would call a peninsula citation subscription type model, because that's what they understood. But I knew as a HR professional that wasn't going to deliver the outputs that I wanted my brand to deliver. And there's this thing now in the market that's much more clear, but it wasn't then, called fractional. And I kept talking my language, not theirs, in this fractional thing. I'm like, yeah, but it's like they only need 2 hours a month of a HR director, but they need 10 hours a month of the business partner, and they need 20 hours a month of the advisory, and they need 30 hours a month of administration. I didn't realise it was called something, and that there was a real market out there, because I was in a small circle. The second thing that I'd probably say is trust yourself and make sure that you don't do what I did, which is stick in a small circle. If the market reflection is telling you that, that's fine. I'm not saying don't alter your strategy from a business. I'm just saying check what your circle and your influence and your information is coming from before you make a huge decision like I did. And now I'm trying to work my way out of it.
So what was the pivotal moment that made you work your way out of that decision?
I'm not sure it was a moment. I'd love to tell you that it was just a stamp in the ground and it was a thing. It was a feeling in me all the time, and a resistance. I was resisting that feeling because I was like, I've done this research. All of them say that this is the way to go. It's that. And then we were losing some clients, small clients. We were losing some, and I'm like, what's that about? Why don't you value what we're delivering? What's going on? And some of them were good enough to sit down with me and talk to me about it. Not all by any stretch. Some. And when I spoke to them and what they were expecting really, really significant capability and delivery into their business for £100 a month. And I was like, oh, it's never going to happen. What you're expecting is about £2,000 a month. You're paying 100, but your expectation versus we're just wide apart. And that made me then question, how am I selling this? What am I doing? And what I was doing, I believe, is I'm speaking like I'm speaking to you now on that kind of fractional basis, because that's where my heart is. But I'm selling price-wise this kind of subscription, low value kind of model. So I was actually overselling, under delivering by accident, totally by accident. So I'm really having to go back to all of our current clients to really just reframe and reset and say, hey, listen, this is my language, but hey, listen, this is what you've got, this is what we can do. How would you like to work with us? What does that look like for you? there are all these different ways of working with us so that our clients can really understand that they bought an advice line with a few videos given to them every month, as opposed to a team around them. So that, I'm not sure that I'd love to tell you that I did that really well, but I didn't.
It's so mirror of, I know that you're HR and I'm finance, but it's the mirror is exactly the same.
Oh, really?
It is, it absolutely is. And because people don't, so in accounting, traditional practice, traditional accounting is very different from the service that I want to deliver and can deliver, and actually the service that small businesses need. And you're absolutely right, there wasn't a word for it going back 5 years, or again, it wasn't particularly on my radar, but I do think it's very much more, well, it's just there now, isn't it, that word? Whoever came up with it, we need to find out. But yeah, no, and people understand that more than, just we're HR support. They understand that wording more. But I also think the different kind of job roles that you described there, HR director, HR business partner, HR manager, HR admin, people don't understand what those roles are and what different things they deliver. And I bet Phil will say the same in the IT world. It'll be, he will have come across the same kind of challenges, because I know that's what Phil's business does. So Phil does what we do, but for IT. So it's really interesting though, and I agree with you that so just pulling out your one things, which was consistency. Everybody tells me that consistency is a good thing, and I'm sure it is, but I struggle with it every day. So it's really good that you could be disciplined. Definitely a work in progress. And the trust yourself, and I think the truth of that is it goes back to the business that you want and the service that you want to deliver, and making sure that you stay true to that in your journey, and that you don't give up finding a way to navigate through it.
I would completely agree with that. I think that you probably fell into the trap that I've certainly fallen into, I think all business owners fall into, that I can imagine you were in a B&I meeting, you were saying, guys, what kind of price do you think you'd be prepared to pay? They're saying £100, £200 a month, but actually the product that you're kind of talking to them about is maybe, if you were to hire a HR manager in my standard, it would be £5,000 a month. Well, you're not then going to be able to give that service, even though you're fractional, for £100 a month. And it's saying either A, I want to do the £100, but it's going to be a completely separate service, or B, that's not my product. I'm not looking for that kind of customer. I'm looking for a bigger customer, somebody who values HR more, or has more need for HR. And actually, I have kind of let you decide my product, and it wasn't what I wanted. And I really, really loved the fact that you spoke to people who left your services and sat down, because that is, I don't know, can we still say ballsy? I don't know, I'm with Meg, the HR advisor, probably not. But that is it's a ballsy decision, isn't it? And it's a tough conversation, and it's painful, and especially to go into that, as I think you did, with a real open mind and not defensively, but to say, what did you think I was going to deliver? Where has it gone wrong? And then to realize, actually, you were looking for a Porsche and you were paying for a Vauxhall Nova. This couldn't have worked.
Yeah, but there's a lot of, I don't think that's the client's fault. That's how I sold it. That was all us. And now we're undoing that work. So we're still in that process.
I think that's, absolutely phenomenal. Meg, if people have listened to you, liked what they've heard, and they would like to get in contact with you and speak to you either about a HR matter or to do business moving forward, what would be the best way to get in contact with you?
So Meg at hrdownload.co.uk is the easiest way for a sales inquiry to come through to us to see whether we'd be able to help them on their people journey.
And just as a complete shameless plug, who would be the ideal person that you would love to get in contact with you?
Yeah, so our client avatar, we've been working on that, is between 25 and 75 employees that they have broadly, and they know that leading people is tricky, so they get that their people are going to drive their business. They understand that in order to be a true business owner and not an operator, They need their people to be free to do the job that they've employed them to do, and they need those jobs and functions to function brilliantly. So they want somebody or a team of people to help them, push them, get them into a place whereby they're elevating their learning, they're shifting their own self out of being an operator typically and into being that business owner. That's where we're very strong, all of our tools and processes. And coaching, sometimes big pushes and slams on them, is all about get you out, come on, get out of that space into this space. That's where you need to be. So that would be our ideal marketplace person.
That's super. Thank you so much, Meg, for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Well, that was a really interesting talk with Meg Fenney, going over really her whole kind of business, including childbirth and COVID, I think, interlaced in there. What was your one key takeaway, Ailey, from that chat?
So my one takeaway was just that how much the reality of running a small business can be a real challenge, and that as business owners, we don't really share that with other people.
Yeah, when you say we don't, do you mean that we don't share that with employees, or we don't share that with anybody whatsoever?
I think that there are times when we probably don't share it whatsoever.
Yeah, I think the one thing that was the thread that kept coming up through that was how much of an influence the B&I peer group were, and massively positive in support and sales and accountability, maybe less positive in, and I think this is the very nature of it, and that people want to help us, but they can only help us with the people that they directly know, and so they want you to have a product that they can sell on your behalf, if you know what I mean. And I think that was kind of where things were a struggle for Meg as she navigated that. I think it was really strong of her to go to the clients and say directly, you know, what aren't you happy about? What can we improve? And then to find out that there was such a big gap between what she was able to deliver for the price they were giving her and what she would like to deliver and the price that would cost.
Yeah, and it's so often, it's the other way round usually, isn't it? That you undercharge and over-deliver. Whereas I think what Meg realised she was facing, as she said herself, is that she'd sold a higher standard service at a low price, and there was just a complete disjoint between what was expected and what was being delivered. And I think you're right that you said that it is ballsy to sit down and do that, because it can't have been easy to hear that feedback, particularly not on the back of losing clients, but then it's obviously will help Meg moving forward in creating the actual business that she wants to create. And I think that's something that's really important as well, that stood out from that we don't have to, just because somebody that you think is wiser, been in business longer, you know, perhaps you feel like they know better, but if that's not really true to what you want to do in your business, don't feel like you have to kind of morph into that or just do it because they're not on board with that fact. You know, go and find somebody that would be on board with it, or that, you know, can help you in a different way, I think would be my take on that.
And it's such a thin line between people giving you advice that you should take on board and people giving you advice that you shouldn't take on board. And I think that's really where having a mentor or a group of peers in your industry that are either doing as well as you or better than you is a real brilliant place. Because I think if Meg had gone to them and said, they're saying that I should have this really low offering, they would have said, maybe, you know, probably not give it away as a freebie, but have this as your real introductory and make it clear to people that the model you want them on is this great model where you can give them so much value, but your starting point to get to know you is this one here, where you're going to get your monthly videos and you've got the contract and you've got these bits straight away. So still great value, but don't expect you're going to get the champagne service at the soda water price.
I think what you've just said there is that it's the key to that is finding somebody that's either doing what you want to do, so they're already walking that walk or have been on that journey, and not listening to somebody that hasn't got the business model that you want.
Yeah, but it's still more than likely got the best intentions for you.
Yeah.
Has been in business for 10 years, has got a successful business, has given advice to other people that's been fantastic. However, maybe doesn't know your market demographic, even though they're a great business owner. And there's a big difference between selling 1 million chocolate bars with a penny profit per chocolate bar and selling one sculpture every 6 months for a £300,000 margin, isn't there?
There definitely is. There definitely is. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope you found one thing to help move your business forward.
And if you did, please do us a favour and share this episode with someone else who's on the same journey. We'll see you all next time on What One Thing.